very rim of known space, justice is a long way away.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian. Joining me, as always, is your co-host, Spaz.
Or the Unity.
Your co-host, Julie.
That is the Sins of a Solar Empire reference, by the way.
Is it? Is that made in Unity? Sins of a Solar Empire?
No. It's Sins of a Solar Empire. One of the call-out lines is for the Unity.
Right. God, it's been ages since I played that. Your co-host, Julie.
How are you doing?
Your co-host, Thorsten.
Unity lost. Hi.
Your co-host, David. Hey.
Yeah. Hello.
And we're not sure where Jacob is. Hopefully he'll be. Oh wait, did he? Oh no, there. He just went from kind of online to online, so maybe he'll join. There he is. Hey,
Right.
Jacob.
Hello.
Your co-host, Jacob. Everyone.
Right on time right on cue, I imagine.
No quote today?
He just got here. Come on, man.
I woke up like 45 seconds ago, please.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No.
You okay, man?
No. Well, yes, I had a nap.
Well, that's good. Thank you for doing that. I mean, naps are great. The older you get, the more useful naps are. Let me tell you. I cannot. Anyway, that could be another topic. Getting older as a gamer. Well, that actually might not be a bad topic. Anyway, folks, we're here today to talk about some current events. We usually try and talk about more timeless topics. Favorite this, what and that. But here we're going to be a little topical and talk about something that's probably going to affect all of us, from lowly gamers to developers to AAA houses. It's going to affect us for years, probably. And that's the ongoing Unity debacle. Now, if you're not sure what that is, where have you been?
Or if you're listening to this in the far, far-flung future.
Far future, which is possible.
Miraculously, it has not caused so much fallout that you're still intimately aware of what's going on.
Ah, man, that'd be nice. So a week ago, roughly, on the 12th, which is last Monday, I think, Unity announced that they were making serious changes to their platform, and that had to do with revenue. Would you call it revenue sharing? I'm not sure I would call it revenue sharing. They were basically going to start charging people based on installs. And that's the crux of it, basically. And that sent everybody in a tizzy. Everybody. Because, one, how do you proper measure the installs? Who's measuring them? What are you measuring them with? How are you properly measuring installs? That was never clarified.
And is it also per install, or just the first install that counts?
Yeah, they've never been. I mean, they've tried to clarify that since then, but when they first came out with this, is we're going to start charging you based on installs, and people rightfully, excuse my language, lost their ever fucking loving shit. And I use that as
a technical term,
and I use that language specifically because it's a big freaking deal. A lot of people were losing their minds because, what counts as an install? If someone installs it on a PC and a laptop, is that 2 installs? According to Unity at the time, yes. And you also have...
Or if they have to reinstall it, or if they have multiple systems on which they run, because maybe they have a net cafe. So,
yeah, or you change your video card, which basically makes it a new PC. Is that a new install? Mm-hmm. Crazy stuff like that. And then you have people who sell their games in bundles, where they've got tons of people buying and maybe installing their game and never playing it. And that also that also comes up with a thing that, like, I don't think this term existed recently, called install bombing. You don't like someone who makes a game. You have everyone who doesn't like their game install it. Suddenly they owe Unity lots and lots of money. So it's a goddamn mess. And Unity has tried to walk back. Unity is, God, their communication has been just terrible in all this.
Well, that's kind of the issue. They're being very non-specific.
Yeah. It's like they've not walked it back yet. They recently, and I don't think they announced it. It was just like through a leak. They announced that they're changing things. So it's like a 4% cap, but only over games that make $100,000 or something. It's still very confusing and not fully confirmed because they haven't released anything yet. This is all, I think I read it on a leak on Bloomberg, basically.
It's still ongoing, too.
It's still ongoing as we record this. Yeah. So this, if you're unaware, just FYI, the game behind the stream is AI War, the original AI War, because I looked up games made with Unity and I found that Arkin games, like pretty much all their games, are made with Unity, going back to 2009 with the original AI War. So that was one of the first games I could find that's relevant to our interests that was made in Unity. Unity's been around for a while. Unity, and there are a lot of good things about Unity. A lot of the devs we've talked to on this podcast use Unity for a variety of reasons. It's accessible. It's inexpensive. It's easy to port your games to other platforms. It supports like all the mobile platforms. It supports all the consoles. It allows you to really help port your game and get your game out there on multiple platforms. So there are a lot of good things Unity has done, and there are a lot of reasons developers use it. Like there are a lot of developers we talk to where their first game, it's on Unity because it's an accessible, easy to use if you're a programmer, well supported game engine. And there are other game engines, sure, but a lot of people use Unity. And so we play so many games that use Unity. And this is not a problem specific really for games that are already out, because they're out, they're there. But like, my concern is the future. Like, if Unity doesn't fully walk this back, if Unity doesn't fully take back what they've done and do something better, which they're not going to do. Let's be honest. They're not going to do that.
We can hope they will.
We can hope, but they're not gonna. They're not gonna. I will. I don't have a hat, but if I had a hat, I would eat it if they walked it back completely. And I don't think they're going to. They're going to try multiple methods, and once they found one where people have moderately calmed down, that's the one they'll probably stick with, and it'll be shittier than what they had. That's my feeling. Yep.
If I can interrupt for a moment, and I don't know if I can I swear in this podcast?
Fuck yeah, you can.
Yeah.
We don't swear all the time.
We try to keep it PG-13,
but at the same time, this is. But at the same time, this topic. I
believe that ship has sailed.
I think for this particular topic, we can swear because we're also fucking angry. Go ahead.
Well, I think it was their CEO that was quoted on a news report I read this morning, who was saying, "If you don't monetize your game, you're a fucking idiot." And I said, "This isn't the kind of person who's going to walk."
Didn't he say that a while ago?
I don't know. I was doing my research this morning, but yeah.
Does the name of this guy start with an R?
It could be, yeah. But my point
His
is,
last name starts with an R, and he used to be an exec over EA.
I was gonna talk about this person.
My point is, this isn't the kind of attitude a company has that says, "Hey, maybe we need to realize that what we're doing is going to hurt mostly indie developers."
Well,
and and this is, I mean, it's really callous because it's like we spoke just before the podcast started in talking with Richard Bartle about this whole thing. He said, and this is the kind of thing where he emails me back and says, I never said this.
You have to specify who that is. People don't just know who that is. Please specify who that is.
I don't know who that is. Sorry.
Yeah, you got to specify. You got to come at this as people don't know what you're talking about. You got to.
Okay, Dr. Richard. Doctor, you wouldn't be playing a game online if it weren't for Dr. Richard Bartle and Roy Trubshaw. The two of them did the first online game, multi-user dungeon, and I've spoken with him a few times. It's not like he's a buddy and I can drop over to the University of Essex, but it's like, and he told me once he felt that the most innovations in the field will probably come from indie developers. And because of how this was originally structured, obviously, because it's based on the most installed, the indie developers who have the least amount at the lowest price games, and whether it's in a bundle, this is who it's going to hurt the most. And I think a lot of gamers, I think, will probably say, well, how does this hurt me? Because in the long run, it's going to hurt everybody in the industry. And this is why. Yeah. And because of the attitude people like this executive had, this isn't the kind of thing where they're likely to undo it. And as I said before the show, the whole thing with Unity now reminds me of the courtroom scene in the movie Chicago, where Richard Gere plays an attorney and he's tap dancing around trying to win the case for his client. And that's kind of like what this is, because now they realize they've become very unpopular, they're going to try and tap dance around and try and talk their way out of being very unpopular. And now everybody is starting to cancel their Unity-based games.
Yeah, that's going to be the big problem in the future. Is there? I've talked to people who don't fully understand how this is going to affect them as a gamer, and you're like, well, I mean, if everyone switches from Unity to something else, that's going to kill games coming out for a few years.
Yeah, that's not easy.
No, it's not. It's and the problem is, like, you have people, and there's a great video I posted on the Discord where I forget the name of the developer, but he talks about like how people have been going to school for Unity, how people have a decade, wrapped up in learning Unity through going to school, through their various career paths. What's going to happen to them? They're going to have to learn something new, and it's terrible for so many people, and this is going to kill indie games. I think, like, we've been in a real wonderful age of indie game development, and I think if this isn't fully walked back, it's going to kill it, at least for a few years. It's going to take a long time to recover from this if Unity moves forward with their ridiculous plans. And they haven't said they're not going to. They haven't walked it back. They haven't been clear at all about what they're going to do. They've done these apologies of, we hear you, we're sorry you're upset, which is, hilarious. They've not done anything, honestly, to make people feel better. The fact that I think it was a former Unity employee phoned in a bomb threat tells you a lot.
I mean, that's a serious thing, but
it's a serious thing. But
also, do we entirely blame them?
Exactly. Like, can you imagine working at Unity right now? Apparently, from what I understand, I've seen anecdotal things about this from tweets and whatnot, about how people working at Unity knew about this for months. And they tried to tell people, like the higher ups, to not do it. They had meetings about it. They tried to tell them not to do it. They tried to tell them how terrible it would be, and they did it anyway. But the funny thing is, I don't know if you guys heard about this. Unity has a mobile ad platform, and they said Unity said, "Oh, we'll give you a waiver from this new revenue model if you use our ad platform." instead of
If
these
and
other
only
guys.
if.
Yeah, like apparently there's another mobile ad. I forget the name of the other mobile ad platform. That's like the big one right now. It's the one that just about everyone uses. And
Google Play.
no, it's like App Logic or some crap. I can't remember the name.
Oh,
Of it.
I see. It's like a.
It's a separate thing. It is a separate thing, and I just can't remember. There have been so many things I've never heard of until this last week. So many companies, so many like there's so many things I've never heard of until this last week. That it's just crazy, but apparently some mobile developers got wind that you don't have to do this revenue thing if you use our ad platform. That effectively, if everyone did this in Unity, it would kill the other company. Basically, absolutely kill it, 100%.
It would give them a monopoly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the intent.
Of course.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me share a thing because I wanted to. We're going to use language again, but there's a great Twitter account, and we're just still going to call it Twitter because it's Twitter. I'm not calling it X.
Lot of anger in this week's podcast.
Well,
justifiably so.
I'm going to say
Justifiably
calling
so,
it
yes.
X is like. Did you ever have a friend in college who's like, I call myself the Edge, and everyone's like, no one calls you that, Jim. No one calls you that. It's like that. It's like that friend in college who tried to give himself a cool nickname, and no one ever used it. It's like that. There's a Twitter called App11. Thank you, Station. That is the name of it. I couldn't remember the name of it. There's a Twitter account called Game Studios Disappointed by Unity that has hundreds of posts. It's been correlating these posts by game developers who have just become so like there was one studio, I forget who, they were like, we've never made a public statement until this. I forget who that was, but they were like, we have never made any public statement until this moment. Because this is bullshit. The language
that is Megacrit, the Slay the Spire devs.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember who they were because there's just been it's been really hard to keep track of everything because there's just so much happening.
To quote the line that they use, the very last line in their public statement, again, verbatim, we have never made a public statement before. That is how badly you fucked up.
Yes, exactly. Like they have never made any public statement until this. And it's just mind-bogglingly horrendous how much they fucked up. They have screwed up so badly.
Here's the thing. The CEO of Unity, okay, he used to be CEO of EA from 2007 to 2013. Okay.
Thank you, Stas.
But here's an actual quote from the guy, back, of course, during his time in EA. Quote, when you are 6 hours into playing Battlefield and you run out of ammo in your clip and we ask you for $1 to reload, you're really not very price sensitive at that point in time. Unquote.
What?
Ooh.
Yeah, he did that.
Yeah.
So
I remember that.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's not a clip, it's a magazine. Thank you very much.
That's the hill you want to die on, huh, Jacob? That's
it could be a clip, depending on the game.
But which Battlefield was that?
He just said Battlefield specifically.
Oh,
he didn't
okay,
specify
so
which version.
It might have been a clip if it was like Battlefield 1, so fair enough. But I'm picking every hill to die on at this point. I'm running out.
You're running out of hills.
I'm severely running out of hills.
You're gonna start digging up the other hills to make a new hill.
I don't want to mention the name of this guy, but the list of companies.
No! Let's fucking name him. How do you even say his fucking name? How do you say his name? How do you say his fucking name?
It's better to not to. People can look that up. They can.
Yeah,
look that up.
people could look it up, and I leave it to them.
Begins with an R, ends with an O. It's not Ensign Row, but it begins with an R, ends with an O. He has a long history. Go ahead.
The list of games he killed, the list of developers he killed off in his career is staggering.
Well, it's Electronic Arts. Are we really surprised?
It's not only Electronic Arts.
Yeah.
There's more.
Yeah.
There's been a lot more than that.
Yeah. That's one of the big ones. But yeah, this guy has a history, and
Right. So, okay, let's try and drag this back onto some kind of topic, because we can dunk on the guy and the event and what he's done.
Well, it's relevant here. It's relevant that I'm bringing it up because it's the kind of mentality that leads to a decision like this.
Well, that's the thing. What mentality is that, and what causes it? I was gonna say, like, can we try and get some kind of lesson out of this? Because
Lack of ethics.
We can.
Because hey, just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it is ethical. And the guy has no ethics.
no.
Not only that, it's even if you are without any ethics in this regard, you shouldn't do it from a business perspective. I mean, Unity is a share is a company at the stock market, and
it is publicly traded. Yes,
yeah, and it's not only publicly traded.
And
he sold 20,000 of his shares the week before the decision was announced.
Yes, that is
unsurprisingly.
That is part of the problem.
You know, the thing is, and to be, well, obviously part of the problem also is that they're going to make this retroactive. Well, they wanted to.
Yeah, they did.
They wanted to.
And Massive Monster, that has this hit game called Cult of the Lamb, they have said because of this they're going to delete their own game and leak it to the public, and because as of January 1st, if it goes into, so basically they're going to give away their own game just to get around this. But also keep in mind, anytime you have a publicly traded company, you also have to deal with what we've seen increasingly in America, and that's corporate greed. And you see developers who see what other companies can make. And Paul Barnett, yes, Paul Barnett, if you don't know him, you can Google him, but he was talking about the success of World of Warcraft and its height when it had more players than Switzerland had people. And he said part of the problem is investors will see the success and expect a company to try and duplicate that. And so if you look at the company that owns Unity, their stock has been going down. And so it's not just, I think, executive greed, I think it's investors as well.
Yeah, that's the big part. Is again, gaming has been getting very big in the past however long, and it's become a massive market. But as a consequence of having become a massive market, it has also become there is of course the expectation of growth, and that expectation of growth is just mathematically unsustainable because there is an infinite number of people on this planet.
Yeah, you can't have growth over every quarter. That's not possible. And you can't...
As such, game companies get to a, let's say, increasingly excessive means of trying to extract money from their customers, which results in stuff like this.
Yeah, and gamers will take a lot. Gamers will put up with a lot, but they won't put up with constant monetization, and neither will developers.
Come on, guys. How much has this backfired in the past 25 years? I mean, we've got a lot of examples, and why does it still happen? Why? That's the question I ask constantly. Why do they repeat the same mistakes over and over again?
I think they're like Todd.
Because shareholders are involved.
I think they're
That's
like
why.
I think they're like
Shareholders are
toddlers.
involved.
I think they're like toddlers. They push and push and push to see what they can get away with until they can't get away with anything.
I mean, you can include the shareholders, and I agree with you very much in that, because most shareholders don't have any clue what's going on. But yeah, no,
No, they don't. They just want to see return on investment, and that's all they care about.
Yeah, okay, so you could put it that way, but essentially you lose money with that.
Also, I mean, here's another factor, and the developers aren't always at fault, and not the developers, I'm sorry, the executives aren't always at fault, because think in the past when you've had gamers saying, well, or anybody who buys a particular product that said, this is horrible, we're going to boycott this. Unless everybody in the industry or the end user is in on this boycott, it's not really going to matter. You can say, imagine if somebody had said, well, we're not going to buy Starfield because of what this had just happened. I mean, and Starfield was somehow made with Unity instead of their own engine. I can only think that kind of strike on the company wouldn't have been successful. So in some part, I think gamers have themselves to blame, not particularly in this issue, but if you're going to vote with your wallet, then that's the way it is. And I think part of what I see in any industry, whether it's mine or this one, is you see the kind of the boil a frog effect. You know, people, when they first announced $70 games, everybody was up in arms and said, I'll never pay it, I'll never pay it, I'll never pay it. But now, you know what I mean? It's like, I expect a $70 game. So
anyone remember Horse Armor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's like you grandma used to say you got to stick to your guns, and everybody has to be involved. Unfortunately, this time, the big AAA houses have gotten involved, and I think that's why this will probably change. But you know, gamers can't always just sit back and say, oh, look, it's just the executive and there's nothing I can do about it. You know, and it's like, I can make a difference. Yeah, I can make a difference by saying, here's a game that's going to come out with Unity, and I support the developer, but I'm not gonna pay for it.
Well, let me give you another perspective here. There's another Discord that I'm on for an indie game. And in the last week, they've had many people ask, good faith actors asking, is your game made in Unity? And the reason they ask is because they respond with, if it was made in Unity, I'm not going to buy it. And when they're told, no, it's not made in Unity, great, thanks, I'm going to buy it. It's not because it's because they want to support the developer, but they don't want to support what Unity's doing. So as I say, good faith actors they're not trying to ruin the devs.
That's a tough call though, because you are hurting the devs by not buying the game.
It is
if it's
the issue.
If it's not buying it, right.
See, if the game has not already been developed, that's one thing. But if I were to go out to, say, Kickstarter, and somebody says, yeah, I'm going to put this in Unity, you don't get a nickel. And that's the thing, is there are other alternatives out there, but, you know, to an indie developer. So, yes, it is a hard call, but unless people vote with their dollars, nothing's going to change. And they'll try and boil the frog. And this year it'll be some smaller changes till it kind of works their way up to where it's right where they wanted it to be.
Yeah. They'll make the poison pill smaller and easier to swallow, and give it to us in a more in over a longer period of time until we get to where they wanted us anyway. That is the big fear. That is the big fear.
As poetically disturbing as that sounds, yes.
But
not inaccurate, just highly disturbing the way you put it.
No, I know, but it's.
I had never heard about boiling the frog until in my own industry, they started to do just exactly that. And I learned about the analogy. It's like, okay,
I've never heard that
just a
analogy.
little bit at a time.
Honestly, I'd never heard that analogy.
It's because the way frogs work is when you when you chuck a frog into boiling water, it'll jump out. It's a frog. It doesn't want to be boiled alive. But if you put the frog in cold water and then slowly increase the temperature, the frog will just sort of sit there like nothing's going wrong until it boils alive.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I'm worried that that's what's going to happen with Unity. Like they'll walk back just enough to leave the door open to get to where they wanted to go in the first place. And there are some conspiracy theorists. I don't know if they're conspiracy theorists, but there are some people that theorize that that's exactly what they're doing. Give us the absolute worst option first, so every other option sounds better until you eventually get to that terrible option.
To make them seem more reasonable by comparison.
It's just so frustrating. Because how many devs have we talked to where their first game is in Unity? Or all of their games are in Unity?
I was a guest on the show. I mean, Quintet was made in Unity.
Yeah, present company included.
Can you imagine people who are kickstarting Unity games right now? Like they started a Kickstarter game for a Unity game, and then this drops? How does that work out? Like, do you start saying, hey, if you give me money, I'll port it to another engine? Or do you cancel your... Like, what do you do if you're kickstarting a Unity game?
It is a tough call. And
yeah.
I don't think I can answer that for anyone because it's going to depend on a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, and in addition, there is something I'd like to mention. Well, okay, I thought I was going to... One second, I need to gather my thoughts. So carry on.
No, I mean, it's... I just really don't envy developers right now who don't know how to move. Like, how do you move forward right now? What do? Do you keep developing? Do you stop everything? Do you hope it's all going to work out? What do you do? Like, it just, like, so many developers feel like that I've talked to feel like they're in this limbo right now because they don't know what to do going forward. Like
and if they're already released, there's also that chance that going to keep to what that leak had. The number of installs retroactive. Now, what happens if a free game that has... Okay, I'll give an example. With Quintet, for free, and a DLC that...
Oh.
In that model... So, when we released Quintet, we put it out with a free base game and a paid DLC. So in that case, based on how many people downloaded the game, since the base game was free, how screwed would we be right now if they decided to make that retroactive and say,
extremely.
You owe us? Yeah, exactly. And we made the whole game free. By the way, we took out the paid part of the DLC and we just included that in the base game. But still, if they said retroactively, you've had X number of installs across all the platforms because we were severely multi-platform, and they said, yeah, you owe us this much now, we would be totally screwed financially.
And that's one of the shittiest things they did is they changed their own terms of service. Because from what I understand, they had a thing in there where they were like, if you release a game in Unity under this specific engine, it uses the terms of service of that specific version of the engine that you used to release it.
Yes.
And then they removed that.
Yes.
So it's like if they can just go back on something they said like years ago and just be like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. How can they ever regain trust? How can they ever regain anyone's trust? Yeah, I'm not sure they can at this point. I think even if they walked it entirely back and what's his name resigned and the board stepped down and you had a top to bottom, reorganization of the entire executive team that made this happen. I don't know if that would be enough.
Yeah, short of like chucking Unity out in the open, making it open source, I don't see any way to recover from this.
Yeah.
Though it is interesting that, like, I feel like the main reason why something might happen is because there are some really big fish that have happened that are releasing games on Unity that might have something to say about it. Because here's the thing, I get distinct feeling the CEO in question may not have realized just how big Unity was, thinking it was an engine that indie devs used to make stuff with.
Oh, hello, Nintendo.
So,
hello.
yes. So
Right.
yeah, Nintendo has made like 4 games with Unity. And you know what's also made in Unity? This little thing called Genshin Impact. That, as much as I personally highly dislike it, it is a massive game with a monumental player base and more money than God.
Pretty much.
And also, financial backing from the Chinese government, as most things in China have. So there's a lot of money going towards that game, and a lot of people would get very mad if Unity pulled this sort of nonsense.
I forgot about that game.
This could also be a solution to the problem. There might lie a solution there. I'm not entirely sure if that would happen, but there might lie a solution there. I mean, as much money as is involved in there, you could imagine that some people at Nintendo would be very upset.
Yeah. I can only see one good thing coming out of this whole debacle, is that the influx of Unity asset flips that hit Steam every day would just completely stop.
Yes, with the caveat
It would hurt a lot more than that. Though,
I know. I'm saying that's probably the only good thing that could ever come out of this. That's the only thing.
But with the caveat,
that's
of
like
a lot of people, because they're made by talentless hacks that can work on anything, they'll just switch to Unreal Engine.
that would be like hacking off your own arm because you got a paper cut.
Oh, I know. I agree. I completely agree. I'm just saying that I was trying to think of I'm trying to think devil's advocate. Like, what maybe one good thing?
Yeah, it's less that and more the fact that you have like severe gangrene and necrosis in your right arm and the paper cut. So hacking it off is the solution, and also you don't have the paper cut anymore. We're at this level of desperate. We're at this level of desperation. We're actively like in a zombie film, and we have to cut off our right arm so we don't get turned.
So Station 240 brings up an interesting point in the chat. The 10% of devs being affected by this change are the only ones that are making money. Students and bored basement dwellers, that's an interesting phrase, are unaffected. I mean, that might be true, but then why even try to make a game that makes money? I mean, why even bother at that point?
And there is nothing to say that they would not increase the potential number of users that would hit their revenue sharing threshold. They could always change the threshold.
Oh yeah,
if they've changed the terms of service so that it doesn't matter which version of the engine you were using, they can. It's Vader saying, "I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further."
Yeah, with all the consequences thereof, including the spiky chair.
If you're trying to find something good that came out of this, here's one tiny small thing. The developer Relogic, who developed Terraria as a result of all this, has developed $100,000 each to the developers of the open source games Godot and FNA, and is going to support each of them $1,000 a month going forward. So, it's like, okay, well, now you've got competition.
That's so funny because Terraria, I don't even think is made in Unity. They have like no skin.
No, it's not.
Yeah, they have no skin in this game, in this particular game, and they're like, "Fuck y'all, Unity. We're giving these guys money."
And I posted something in the chat here. You can see it from Master Monster saying, "Buy our game now because we're going to delete it on January 1st. And your grandmother used to say, who was a businesswoman, trust is something that's easy to lose and impossible to get back.
I just want to go
Where did
back
you
to
post
what
that?
Spaz said.
In
screen
the,
cap.
in the screen
Oh, it's an image. That's why I didn't see it. Okay.
an image from it's an answer to all this from Massive Monster, the developer.
Right. Sorry, what were you going to say, Thorsten?
I just want to go back to what Spaz said, because that's something what I'm really concerned about. That they just set down the level and do that retroactively. That much more people will be
They'll be willing to say,
this.
sure, let's go with this. It seems reasonable until they change their minds.
Right. I mean, it's by now they try to calm down all the small devs out there that didn't make much money. But what does stop them to do it again and to lower just the level? The level. I don't know what would stop them, because it's they already lied. Lying is probably the wrong phrase, but
that is the issue. The Pandora's box is open now. The genie's out the bottle. They have to deal with that somehow, and we have to deal with that in return.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right, Thorsten. Who's to say, like, even if they walk everything back, you can't trust them again because they can just change everything again. You're absolutely right. They can just say, "Whoops, psych, we are going to do this." Ha ha. Like,
deal with it.
Yeah, deal with it. You made another game in Unity. Ha ha, you're screwed. Like, I think this is gonna kill gaming not kill it entirely, but this is really gonna kneecap indie gaming, especially, for a long time.
It's gonna cause issues.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
it's already causing issues. I mean, there are people who've already decided to switch engines for their next game.
Yeah,
they're all the ones that are in progress right now that have to make the decision as to whether or not they're going to switch engines or stay with it, and all the uncertainty that goes along with staying could possibly cause.
Yeah. Oh, Station 240 brings up another good point. No one trusts them to make accurate estimates as to how many installs your game has. Yeah, exactly. We were saying that earlier. Like, where are they getting these metrics from? Is Steam giving them to them? Probably not. Where are they?
From what most people suspect is because the CEO in question is an Electronic Arts knobhead. Electronic Arts knobheads all have a unifying trait of really liking mobile games. So there is a non-zero chance the person in question expected it to work the way you would see on, again, something like the App Store, which does give you an estimate of the installs, and they would probably think they would have an estimate to work off of. There is no such thing, by the way. There's absolutely none.
Yeah, I mean, does Microsoft give them that? Does Sony give them that? Does Steam give them that? I don't think so. Are we talking about spyware in their games now?
Early on, believe it or not, they said, well, we're just going to trust the developers. And what this put me in mind of is, if you go back enough in America's history, there really used to be something called a luxury tax, just like in Monopoly. And my grandmother's response to the tax man was always, I don't own anything. And I think that's exactly what would happen. But what I know is going to happen is it's going to be spyware. And my thing is not on my computer, because I've had enough spyware on my computer.
No arguments there.
Yeah, no.
It would be one thing if they tracked it based on purchases. Because then you can actually track how many purchases have been made. I mean, that's how...
Yes, and also that's how engines work now.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they could have been doing with it, to say, okay, fine, you make X amount of money over this threshold, we start charging you that percentage. But that's not what they decided to do. They decided to take the worst options, throw them out there and say, deal with it, and then walk that back, and they're not going to stop.
No.
Because they've opened this Pandora's box by going this route. They're not going to stop with this.
Yeah, they're not. It's and right, even right now, we're just all filled with uncertainty because they've not really walked back anything. They've kind of hemmed and hawed. They've tried. They've done these non-apology apologies. They haven't really taken back anything. It's just, they got caught with their hands in their pants, and they're like, "Oh God, you saw us." Oh no.
Well, there's this meme going around the internet, and one of my friends posted it, and I think you did too, Brian. It's someone offering to rent out their house for a background so that the non-apology apology can go out there, and one of them is the two people who just decided to two people had just decided to cross the picket line and now said, "Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't cross the picket line," unlike John Oliver has said, "Okay, let me do something to pay you so you can stay out."
Yeah. Go unions. That's what we have to say about that. Go unions. God, we need more unions, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
We just need all the unions.
I am offering now to rent out my basement to the executives in Unity who want to technology, because my basement looks terrible, and they can just say, "Look, I'm sorry that look at this mess. We apologize. We were out of our minds." This
reminds me of something said on my Facebook. When they worked at Google, they heard that higher ups at Google, when doing all hands on deck calls, were not supposed to show their house at all, if possible, because they didn't want the rank and file to see how well they lived. So
that surprised me.
So they blurred their backgrounds and everything, so they wouldn't see the fucking mansions they lived in.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean,
also unsurprising.
God, I wish we could have some kind of indie dev union. I don't know how that would work. I don't know.
Well, the problem is it kind of couldn't, because you need that to negotiate with someone. Unless you start like you could start if anything, you could absolutely start like an engine union in theory.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Theory.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, a dev union would also require a unified publisher, probably.
Yes,
or something like that, where there's a consortium of publishers and then a consortium of devs, and I don't think it would work. Not because it can't work, but because just the way that the
it's logistically non-viable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thorsten, you bring
within individual companies, maybe, but no. Otherwise,
Thorsten, you bring up a good. It'd have to be more like a co-op. Yeah, that's a good point, Luke. You bring up an interesting point, Thorsten, about can we trust digital distribution platforms? I think the question there is kinda, because say what you want about Steam, for example, they do quite a bit to try and make their platform as not confrontational, but they don't want a lot of scandal with their platform, so they don't allow NFT games. They don't allow
drama-free.
Yeah,
they tried until now. That could change in the future. I mean,
yeah, I know. I guess that's another thing, is who can you trust? I mean, if you want to dive down that rabbit hole, you could say, hey, we don't own the games we quote unquote own on Steam, and they could take them away at any time. So it's like,
right.
That is correct.
And it happened.
That sort of thing has kind of happened.
Yeah, it has.
With some games that have been delisted, where the developer does take the servers offline, you don't have the option of playing them again. And that just happens because sometimes the game gets delisted and that's it. But anyone who owns it has it, but they can't necessarily do much with it.
I think there have been at least one or two instances where the games were removed from people's libraries entirely, but that
has happened.
That's very rare, thankfully. That's been very rare. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of who do you trust, I mean, no one. You can't trust. You can't trust social networks. You can't trust digital distribution. You can't really trust anybody. You know, I mean, that's where it goes.
You're kind of screwed.
You're kind of screwed. Yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes it feels like the only ones really looking out for us are the EU. Like, they're the ones that say, "Hey, Apple, fuck you. Go to USB-C." You know, they're the only ones saying stuff like that. You know?
Which, I mean, I'm not complaining.
No, that's great. I'm saying, I think.
In regards to the EU, by the way, the EGDF has called for EU regulation on non-negotiable contracts in wake of.
Explain what that is.
So, the EGDF is the European Games Developer Federation. And so they made a statement to the EU in regards to having regulations on non-negotiable contracts. So Unity changed their contract in order to make this thing happen.
The terms of service, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
The terms of service.
Yeah.
So the idea is that they can't be unilaterally changed without both parties consenting.
That's great.
That's the idea that the EGDF is calling for, is that if they're going to change the contract, they have to give you they have to give you notice of the changes coming and then give you adequate time to respond to that.
Oh, Unity did none of those things. Absolutely none of that. They did zero of those things. They just made a post like, "Hey, developers, fuck you."
We're doing that now, and you're going to deal with it.
Yeah, it feels like sometimes when the EU, when it feels like the EU is the only ones looking out for you, it's like, oh, great, okay, and we're not even in the EU, so fuck.
Yeah, you all are like across the pond. You're screwed.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
we know. We know.
To further quote from this statement. Quote, install fees will lead to markets where game developers want to limit the downloads and try to avoid installs from the wrong players. This can potentially kill part of the game market. For example, indie developers that have an unfortunate mix of being a success on the number of installs, but that are struggling to generate revenue, or hyper-casual game studios based on combining a huge install base with minuscule revenue generated per game, unquote.
That's so confusing. Like, how do you even make that happen? How do you even, like, we want you to install our games, but we don't want a lot of people to install our games. So we're going to charge a lot of money for our games so fewer people buy it.
Well, that's kind of the issue there.
Oh, God. So, did you guys hear that? I hope you didn't hear that.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Something.
That was me. My UPC decided to do a self-test right now for some reason.
Interesting.
And it told me it passed. Yay. Okay, that's good, I guess. Sorry. I was not planning that. Yeah, but I don't. I guess it happens every so often. Just usually not in the middle of a show. So
we're professionals, everyone.
So let's talk about the future here. We've touched upon it, but what do we all think is going to happen in the short term and the long term? And I'm deathly afraid of what's going to happen, honestly, because I think in the short term, things won't change too much. We'll still have 100 some games released on Steam every day, and a lot of them will be crap. But I think in the next 3 or 4 years, it's kind of like what's going on with the writers and actors strike right now. Like right now, we're still seeing stuff that's already been done, that's coming out. But in a year or two, things are going to slow to a trickle. And
that could pose a problem, yeah.
Yeah, and And I mean, it's a first world problem because, oh no, fewer games are coming out. I'll only dip into the 5,000 game backlog I have, you know. But,
admittedly, we are not short on video games. So
No.
as far as
Long run, think of it this way. When John Oliver interviewed Edward Snowden, and this was when it was still on America's mind, and America didn't realize how prevalent it was. I've spoken with people from other countries, and they said, oh, no, that's only when you say certain words. And I said, no, it's every conversation. And Edward Snowden revealed, and when he first said, here's how prevalent the spying by the National Security Agency is, he said in that interview, one of his biggest fears was the apathy by the American public over this issue. And that's exactly what's happened. And in the long run, if somebody feels this doesn't personally affect them, you know, I can say as an author, I worry about AI all the time. I know other authors who are, you know, who worry about this. I know someone who's an executive FunCom who would probably worry about this. But people can say, well, it doesn't personally affect me, and I can ignore it. And so they'll become apathetic, and then this will become the trend.
Yeah, you're
Sorry to be Little Mary Sunshine.
No,
but,
no,
you know,
you're not wrong. I mean,
and I see it in business all the time.
no, in a lot of ways, we have given up parts of our souls to get free social media, you know. But then they listen to every conversation we have, and suddenly there's an ad about a thing we talked about 10 minutes ago on Facebook.
Yep.
Nope.
Which amazes me because how are they doing that while actual real world speech recognition software is so garbage?
I bet you. Okay, never mind. I sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist.
Let's not get in that.
All right, tinfoil hats aside.
But
let's just talk about the ways we know they're screwing us over because there's plenty of those already.
yeah, and I think this is really going to kneecap indie games for the next several years. Like we're going to get
There are,
Go ahead.
I'd say there are plenty of other engines out there, though. I mean, there's RPG Maker, for
right?
A lot of
But while everyone switches over to those from Unity,
right, but there are people who are already making their games in the other engine.
oh no, you're absolutely
Those
right.
games aren't going to slow down. So I would say that, yeah, we'll go somewhat into a slowdown, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not.
Also, yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not. But I've seen slowdowns before, and it's never been fun. Like in space games, there was a huge slowdown for a decade, and that wasn't. We still had some good stuff,
Fun.
but it wasn't great. Thorsten, yeah, you're now listening to the Guillotine Junkie podcast, where we talk about eating the rich.
We are the torches we are the torches and pitchforks junkies. At that point.
Oh my god.
Okay, here's another.
Let them play with cake. Let them play with cake.
I think the AAA developers will realize what is in the future. They will say, look, we're not doing this anymore. The people who make Unity will all go down the toilet and nobody will dare ever think about doing this again.
Fingers crossed.
God.
It would be nice.
Part of me wonders if we're going to see.
One thing we learn from history is that people will keep making the same damn mistakes.
Oh God! All you need to do,
if it makes them money.
All you need to do is listen to one podcast called The Dollop. It's a great podcast, by the way. And if you want to either be comforted or horrified by how little things have changed, listen to that show.
Because here's also what I base my comments on. When I was in college, and believe it or not, before I came to my senses and got graduate degrees in business, I have an undergraduate degree in theater. And
oh no!
I was in.
I'm sorry.
So I've got experience, right?
You do seem like a theater kid.
And the thing is,
that's not an insult to clarify.
No. We love theater kids.
One of the many.
Not that I would know anything about that.
I was one of the older students, right? And one of the because of how when I was growing up, you want to go to college, you put yourself through. So I was one of the older students, and there was a play about Vietnam, and so I played the Vietnam War vet, and the director, who was a grad student at the time, tried to talk to the other members of the cast about the Vietnam War. None of them had ever heard of it. And
What?
I said, man, truly, hand
What?
to God, none of them had ever heard of it. And I said,
What?
I lived through this shit. Every night, tanks rolling across the screen. And I said, one of the guys that asked me to marry him once was a Vietnam vet. And interesting little side story. He said, he asked me to marry him. And I said, you're a Navy SEAL, ex-Navy SEAL. I said, yeah. You want me to marry you? Yeah. Aren't you already married? Yeah, but my wife's cool with it.
What? that was a lot of information in a very short time period.
Yeah. So, but the thing
Definitely.
is, that's the thing. Doomed to repeat the history if you don't know about what's going on. And
Yeah.
people tend to be apathetic, and that's what happens.
Station brings up a funny point, like Microsoft's going to buy Unity. Did you guys see those leaked documents from Microsoft where they talked about, oh, we want to buy Valve. We're just thinking about buying Valve and all these other things.
That leak was just stuff they were throwing around, though.
I know,
rather
but it's
than
still
actual
funny.
plans.
It's still funny that they were like throwing around these like all these
They're
plans they
considering
wanted
it.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's just possible ideas, brainstorming, that kind of deal, rather than let's formulate these plans and actually do it.
Honestly,
So-
I wouldn't be upset if Microsoft bought Unity.
At this point,
If
I
they
would-
bought Unity, I don't think that would be a bad thing for the company.
I don't think that
overall,
would be a
because
bad
it
thing at all.
could- It could save its reputation.
I mean, say what you want about Microsoft. They've been doing a lot right lately. I think, they've been making a lot of solid decisions in terms of games and gamers.
They do it now, but actually, C# is actually a Microsoft product.
Oh, really?
Would make
Okay, that could end up leaning into a conflict of interest then.
That's true.
would make okay. Yeah,
What I was going to say is, how funny would it be if we saw a surge in other engines after this as people abandon Unity, like Java? Like every time we see a game that's made in Java, we're like, what? But more and more games are being made in Java. I just
We've
ran
had a few in the last year.
Yeah, I just ran to another game someone recommended to me. I think I posted about it. Some little Master of Orion 1 style 4X. Can't remember the name of it right now, but that's entirely in Java. Like, it doesn't even have an exe file. You just you just double click the jar file and it worked. It's like, what?
you compile it. It's self-compiling somehow.
I don't know how that works, but hey, it works. Chat GPT managing Unity. God. Oh no, please not. Please none of that. So, I guess my final question is, before we start wrapping up, is, I guess, what can we as gamers do about any of this? Do we just stay informed? Do we just support the developers during the upcoming tough times? I guess the one thing I would suggest is patience and grace. Because a lot of developers are gonna probably switch engines. Games are going to be canceled. They're probably going to be delayed. And I think we need to be patient and kind about this. We should be patient and kind anyway, but especially now.
The
I would argue stay informed is probably the most important thing in that, because that leads to everything else. If you're informed about what's going on with the developers you're following, the games that you're trying to follow, then you're going to know when these sorts of changes happen, and being aware of it is much more important than trying to say, well, I'm just going to boycott. Because it's easy to get apathetic if you boycott.
Yeah.
One of the easiest things you can do as a gamer is this. When a developer of a big AAA house with a lot of deep pockets says, okay, we're going to start over because we don't want to develop in Unity, and you find out your favorite game you've been looking forward to has an extra 2 or 3 years tacked onto it, don't scream and send hate mail and post about everybody about how horrible the company is. Just be understanding and say, I understand why, and I would rather have a good product than some crap developed in Unity.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we should probably wrap it up then. Does anyone else have anything they want to end on? Okay. All right. No worries. David, you okay? You've been kind of quiet this show. You all right?
I'm tired.
Fair. Totally fair.
Fair.
Being a student, being a student is not easy. I don't miss it at all. I will, like my wife's talking about going for her master's, and more power to her. I will never, never, no. I'm never going back to school. Oh God. School and me don't mix. So more power to you guys for putting up with the necessary thing that is university in order to better yourselves. So, folks, that's going to do it for today. We covered a lot of ground. Well done. That was a good topic, Idea Spaz. I have to admit, I wasn't sure how we would do not being developers, but I think we covered quite a bit, and we had a good discussion, especially in the chat going. Thank you, chat. Good chat today. Very good chat. Next week on the show, we're going to go back to a lighter topic. We were going to do this topic today, but we decided to move it because of all the Unity stuff.
Current events.
Yeah. We're going to talk about hidden gems from our Steam library. This is my idea for a topic after going back to the Viceroy and thinking, what are some other older games that we might have forgotten about in our Steam libraries that are worth playing today? There's got to be some. And so that's what we're going to talk about next week. So have a great day, everyone. Be safe, be well, take care of each other. Please keep yourself informed about what's going on with Unity. As Spaz said, there's lots of sites out there covering it. The Twitter account Fucked by Unity is a good place to start, I think, because that's where you'll see all these game companies talking about Unity kind of distilled into one feed. So that's a very useful place to start, I think. But there are a lot of good resources out there. Bloomberg's coverage has been great. The Verge's coverage has been very good. There's a lot of good coverage out there about what's going on with Unity. So stay informed, because this is going to affect us all as gamers. This is going to affect our favorite hobby. So definitely stay informed. And again, be kind to developers right now, especially because they're going through some shit. So please be kind to each other. Be kind to developers. Stay safe out there. Get vaccinated if you haven't already. I can't believe I have to keep saying this. Just so many things have been piled on in just these last 3 years. My God. And we will see you back. I forget the game we're playing tomorrow. I don't care. We'll see you here tomorrow for something, y'all. Have a good one.